This interview on August 27, 2013, is part of an oral history of the West Chicago Public Library District Project. My name is Crystal Quasman, and I am a member of the Committee for the History of West Chicago Public Library District. I will interview Don and Lois Israel. Lois, how long have you lived in West Chicago?
Since 1966.
Okay. And your first visit to the West Chicago Public Library would be the location at 332 East Washington Street, is that correct?
Correct.
Good. The little brick bungalow.
Yes.
I love that building. Do you have any fond memories, or do you remember anyone specifically from that location on one of your first visits to the library? Don?
Oh.
That's fine.
One person I remember was Alice Colford. I don't know whether she was paid staff or volunteer, but we also knew Alice and Jim and the family from Trinity Lutheran Church. So that was kind of an in coming to the library the first time.
Certainly. Well, we know that the building itself is quite different from our new library today. Tell me a little bit about the building.
The upstairs was the adult section. And first of all, there were wood shelves, but after a while they had movable shelves.
Movable,
And the thing about those movable shelves I'll never forget is that someone on your left could be pushing your way and someone on your right could be pushing your way. And there were times when you got stuck in the middle.
Those are very famous shelves that I have heard about. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. So the children's library was downstairs. Is that correct?
Yes, that was in the basement. They were in the basement.
And how many children do you have? Four. And it's obvious that they four girls. And they used the library and went.
Yes.
Yes, they did.
Good.
They did.
Good. Don, I realize that you are a teacher, and it has taken you to several towns throughout the country, and we're very grateful that you and Lois and your family settled here. Can you tell us a little about your career?
I initially was teaching in southeast Missouri, started there in 1954, taught a one-room school out in a very rural area. We didn't have hardly anything for a library in our little rural building. After 3 years there, we moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right in the middle of the city area known as Squirrel Hill, and our major library was one of the Carnegie system in the Oakland area of Pittsburgh. After 3 years in Pittsburgh, we moved to Monroe, Michigan. We were in a rural area outside of the city, but in the city of Monroe we had an excellent library. And we've got pictures around the house of our children standing in front of the library holding their books. And most of the time we were in the children's department up on the second floor. And I recall one time going in there and the librarian had a brand new book, children's book, that she wanted me to read, and it was Ian Fleming's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So I read it, and I took it back to the school, and I read it to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they fell in love with it. And after 6 years in Monroe, then we moved here to West Chicago, and I taught in District 33, starting at the old Ingleton building up on 59, taught a 3rd and 4th grade room up there, and at that time the Indian Knoll building was under construction. So when that opened in the fall of 67, those of us who taught at Ingleton had our choice of whatever classes we wanted. So I opted for the 3rd grade room. So I was teaching one of the 2 3rd grade rooms, and one of the books I would read all the time every year was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and it became the best known and best loved book in the whole Indian Old School.
Marvelous.
People would be waiting in just to get hold of it. I had an excellent instructor at Eastern Michigan University in children's literature. And she said something one day that stuck with me and should stick with everybody, and that is, you are going to have children in your classroom that will never be able to read that book. So read books to them.
How true.
You will stimulate their interest in reading. But as she said, there are some students, they will never be able to read it.
It's true. And sad.
Yes,
And sad.
very unfortunate.
Yes. Yes.
But I developed the habit then of reading books all the time to the children.
Wonderful.
And when I, after Indian Knoll, well, that was the first of our school unified library learning centers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other buildings began doing the same thing. So when Gary's school did some reconstruction, added a wing, and developed a centralized library learning center, then I put in my name for director of that. And I came over to Gary's school, and many of the teachers in that building, they would bring their students into the learning center and hand me a book and say, please read this to my children. So I would read things like, oh my goodness, Mr. Popper's Penguins and things of that sort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would have, well, John Anderson was principal at the time, and we went out and we found an antique rocking chair, and I refinished it and put it in the learning center. And I would sit in this antique rocker while all the children, whether it was kindergarten or sixth graders, whatever, they'd all be sitting on the floor around, and I could
Sure.
read books to them.
Sure. Sure. Lois, I'm told that you were a teacher as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
I taught first and second grade in a Lutheran school for 2 years, 1953 to 1955. And when the children finished their workbook, they were allowed to go over to the outside wall that was just covered with books, and they could take any book out they wanted and read until the end of the period.
What a wonderful way to have the children complete the task that you had given them. What a treat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Very nice.
They loved to do that.
Good. You must be impressed then with our children's section at the West Chicago Library.
Oh, yes.
I was there this morning and just bowled over at the activity going on and how many children were there and utilizing it.
Yeah, our one granddaughter is now 23, going on 24, but she was born here in '89, and we would take her over to the library. Her mom would take her over, and we got to know everybody in the library.
It's a family. It's a family close feeling, and I think that's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful that libraries run very deep in your career, and we are privileged to have you and have had you in our community this long. And I appreciate very much this interview, and I know you're very busy, and we thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.